Another day at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, we're joined by Shameel Joosub, the Vodacom Group CEO, to talk about the role of this giant telecom in improving climate action among small-scale farmers in Africa. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us how is Vodacom and what capacity is it involved with climate action in Africa?
I think in a multitude of different ways. I think firstly, of course, our own carbon emissions and how we can reduce our carbon emissions, and we've taken it upon ourselves to put ourselves and set ourselves big goals that we're working towards, like making sure that all our electricity by 2025 comes from renewable resources, but also cutting our GHG emissions by 50% by 2025. So those are the commitments that we're making on the one side, and then the other side is our role as a technology provider of how we can use our technology for good and how it can help with climate change and the struggles we find ourselves in. And I think what's important there is, for instance, the platforms and how we can utilize it. So we have platforms for farmers, an example, where we have 2 million farmers across Africa that are linked to our platforms, where we actually help them to improve the yield of their crop, but also connect them to marketplaces. And that becomes a very powerful tool, and you can then provide them with fertilizer subsidies, you can provide them to access to financing, but also cut out the middleman. And specifically, we're also focusing on female farmers. So, that's where the platform can play a big role. Another one that we have is our IoT solutions, as an example, where just putting sensors on pipes, as an example, water pipes, can help you to reduce the losses on water, where Africa is losing 25 to 30% of its water due to leaks. And so technology can provide this enabling factor, and we see ourselves an enabler of helping with the climate change challenge.
Well, it's interesting to hear about your own targets for green energy. But at the same time, when you mention these wonderful technologies, as useful as they are for conserving water and also to improve productivity, how was the uptake among these 2 million users that are attached to your platform? What's the uptake like? Because when we're speaking about the lowest of the pyramid, it is difficult for them financially. So how do you make that easier on them?
Well, I think just the ability, the hope of being included into something that can help you improve start to farming, so you can create that sustainable farming, but also the ability to have access to all these things like financing, like if someone wants to provide a fertilizer subsidy, can be done through the platforms, like access to marketplaces, so you're not losing when you're selling your products and services. It's empowering. So the feedback that's come back is actually very, very empowering in terms of how they feel technology can help them with the challenges, because Russia, Ukraine, and fuel prices have brought an additional challenge on these farmers. And so this goes a long way in helping them to compensate to a large degree for this, and how tech can play a role in improving their yields, but also their capabilities.
Now, when you talk about giving all of this technology, making it available to these different people all across the giant continent of Africa, companies do tend to partner with others who also share the same sentiment. So here at COP27, have you found any interesting partnerships, collaborations to make that dream a reality?
Well, I think, besides for me, besides COP highlighting some of the challenges, I think what you do have is multiple business leaders from governments, from big business and all attending COP. So it does give you that opportunity to connect and actually have those conversations with people you may not have met, or have to specially plan to fly around the world. And that's the big opportunity. I just come out of a meeting with the UN refugees part, as an example, and looking at areas where we can work together and cooperate. And then, of course, things like innovative financing and these things also play a big role of where you can connect. So finding that like-minded part, both with governments as well as other aid agencies, corporates, and so on, gives you the ability to implement. And I think one of the things that we bring across our market. So, the populations in the countries which we operate is 520 million people. So it's quite meaningful in Africa. Is that we can help with the implementation through our platforms, through our feet on the ground, so that more of that aid money is reaching the intended participants as opposed to being lost in the value chain.
So what are your goals with respect to the 520 market that you're talking about? What are your goals over, let's say, the shorter long goals and the long-term goals in Africa? What is it that you're expecting to do?
Well, really, at the heart of it, our purpose is to connect for a better future. So what we're doing is a couple of fold. So what we've done is looked at certain problems and really given ourselves a challenge of reimagining those issues. So an example would be rural coverage. We now, instead of debating the issue every year and doing a little bit, how can we actively transform that? So we've come up with a partnership model of how we're going to take rural coverage to more areas. And the same with fiber as an example. So bringing that, because we see that as an economic enabler and at the core of what we do. So that's the first part. Then secondly, how do we create a social contract with each of the governments in the markets that we operate in and help them on their journey of what they're trying to achieve? And of course, many countries are on the digitization agenda. How do we help them drive that? And how do we make these services available? But also, how do we use the power of the platforms, our M-Pesa platforms, our financial service platforms across the continent? How do we use that to assist in these journeys? But also things like our My Farm Web, our Connected Farmer, our IoT platforms, and how can they play an instrumental role in assisting with that? And then, of course, key to us is, of course, giving back to society. So we have very big foundations across the continent, and that deals with everything from education to gender-based violence, to farming, to planting trees. So we have a number of different initiatives that helps to contribute and really bring through our purpose of connecting for a better future.
So while you're saying your efforts do help the farmers in Africa to help empower them, their social economic development, but at the same time it makes great business sense considering how countries are looking to completely digitally transform, and that is the future. So tell me a little about the scale of the business here. What does Vodacom expect to appreciate out of it?
Well, I think for us more than looking at the business benefits, of course, if you get more people digitally included and so on, they become, over time, they become more fluent and they'll buy more of our products. So, I mean, there is those type of things will happen. But here we're trying to drive the social agenda and make sure, I mean, we have big businesses in terms of enterprise and consumer solutions, but you have to also focus on where your platforms can derive good and really make sure that it can play a meaningful role in the challenges you face with. So example would be, during COVID we made our platform available across Africa. Wasn't taken up by all countries, to be honest, but so example in South Africa the end-to-end vaccine platform was ours, and we played a meaningful role of being able to do it. Across our markets, we made the platform available, but we also paid and facilitated cold storage, because having the vaccines but not having anywhere to cold storage was a problem. So we then partnered with the governments in the markets that we operate to be able to provide that. So it's that type of part of also stepping up when need be and being able to assist.
That is very interesting, actually. You wouldn't expect a telecom company to step in with cold chain technology. That is very interesting. Tell me something. Now, Water Day is going to come up soon at COP27. I'm not sure if you're going to be here. But since you work with farmers, and like you mentioned yourself, 25 to 30% wasted on an annual basis, what are you expecting to achieve at COP27 in terms of water management?
So one of the things that you can see on our Vodafone stand is the solutions that we've come up with that can help you to manage those solutions. So if we put sensors on different parts of pipes, because the biggest issue with pipes is that they're so long that you don't know where it's leaking. But if you put sensors at various points on the pipes, you can, and just managing the pressure and the loss of pressure, it can pinpoint more accurately to the authorities where to go and find the problem. and that in itself will help a lot. And I think one of the besides we have a lot of programs in terms of water wastage and so on across our businesses, but that's playing a smaller role in terms of what we can do. But to affect a bigger change, the technology that we provide can play a more meaningful role across the continent. If these technologies were implemented to actually help, to help governments to be able to get ahead of the problem, and I think that, and that's why we're displaying it here. So I am hopeful that many people and many governments will see what we're doing, and then of course adopt it.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Now, as Shameel said himself, that they are looking to leverage technology to help climate action in Africa.